Joining us now is retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. Good to see you again, Sean. Thanks for coming in. Just what is Russia trying to achieve with these renewed attacks? A real barrage, hasn't there been in recent hours and days?
Yeah, yesterday was the 9th of these large-scale Russian missile attacks across the whole of Ukraine, targeting the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. We've been covering it for some time. Although it was across the whole country, excuse me, the main attacks seem to be at Kiev at the north and around Kherson down to the south here. The Ukrainian air defense systems are improving. They claim that they've shot down 37 of the 40 missile attacks that were due to target Kiev. They seem to be Russia firing them from the Sea of Azov, the Black Sea, but also Krasnodar down here is where the drones seem to be launched from. They were being launched from Crimea. Looks likely that to try and stop the Ukrainians attacking. As you say, these are seem to be designed to erode the civilian support for the war, but most specifically, they don't appear to be helping Putin's military objectives one jot.
What else is going on? They're specifics, aren't they? But what else is happening around the country?
Yeah, so across the country, fighting continues, but it seems evident now that Putin has ordered the taking of Donetsk, and therefore the fighting is most focused around here, particularly around the town of Bakhmut. Russians are still trying to encircle it. They are taking huge casualties. They still have failed, but they are making really incremental gains. If we look to the north, the Ukrainians are trying to cut this Russian line of communication here, trying to stop the resupply of equipment and supplies down to Bakhmut. Interesting to note that the Russians are also digging a lot of trench systems, miles and miles and miles of trenches. Now, many of the viewers will know that from World War I, World War II, trenches were the great protection against artillery and the shrapnel, which is one of the biggest killers on the battlefield. The trouble is, in the 21st century, particularly in the winter, with drones being used by both sides, trench systems are really obvious to the drones, and likewise, for very accurate precision weapons that provided by the West will make the Russian forces in those trenches very vulnerable.
Yeah, interesting. How credible is a potential attack on Kyiv?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting piece, wasn't it, listening to the military commanders. Part of the military role is to constantly review military options and to look at what's the worst case scenario and work out what mitigations you'd have. Kyiv is undoubtedly the centre of gravity for Ukraine. In other words, it's the source of power for Zelensky and therefore will be a target for Russia regardless. But there's lots of factors as to whether Russia could actually take Kiev. One of them is geographic. Russia's quite some way away from Kiev. If you're going to mount this, you'd mount it out of Belarus at the top there. It's pretty clear Lukashenko is a natural political ally of Putin, but the Belarusian people and the military have made very clear they do not want to get involved in this war at all. Interestingly, Putin and Lukashenko are due to meet in 2 days' time. No doubt pressure will increase on Lukashenko. In terms of other equipment, though, Belarus has been providing tanks and other military equipment to Russia. What Russia will also need, those people. We've been covering this, but 300,000 mobilised, 150,000 of those have already been put into the fight. 150,000, the other remaining 150,000, their training should be complete early in the new year, and therefore they could be used. But we'd get early indications. If you remember back in February, we saw early indications of Russian build-up of forces. We've seen none of that as yet. If you remember, Russia failed the first time it tried to take Kiev. It will have learned the lessons, but so will Ukraine. And it'd be very difficult for that campaign to actually succeed. I think on reflection, it's helpful for Russia to use the media to raise the prospect of a potential strike as a deception operation to make Ukraine on back foot. But likewise for Ukraine, it's worth them keeping this highlighted as a grave threat to them, to keep it in the profile of the West, because they need the West's help despite the other domestic distractions.
Yeah. All right, Sean, thank you for that.